Hey everyone, it's Mickelle Weber, host of the House of Peregrine podcast. Today we are resharing an episode that we released before the summer with the brilliant, beautiful, and talented Nina Aziz Justin. She has recently released this book, which I will be leading the discussion with in Amsterdam next week. I would love for you to check it out. It's called The Home Within. We are releasing her episode because it was beautiful. She's a fellow TEDx speaker. She is a resilience mentor and someone who I really think you will enjoy her insights. Check out the original episode. We'll link it below. And this week's clip is really helpful if you are in the midst of anything that you need to have perspective on. I hope you enjoy. When I meet someone who's also been through that, and it seems like it's just been not as much of a crucible for you, it makes me just so happy to see.
Well, now telling this story and we're on this podcast and, we are all TED speakers. It sounds so polished and nice, but the process, the little steps through this journey has not always been smooth.
Yeah. Yes. No, it's not smooth. When you're in it, you have no idea why you're in it. But then when you step back. So let's talk about So I've never had a fellow TEDx speaker on the podcast.
Really?
So we've both had that experience, which is another, I don't know about you, but it was a life changing, affirming, destroying experience that then built back into something else. And so tell me, I want to hear about yours. We can include your talk in the show notes, but tell me what it was about.
Well, in my TED Talk, I spoke about resilience, which is my brand, of course. I call myself the Resilience Mentor, and it's actually not a brand that I came up with on my own. It was developed by a branding agency based on my life story and so on. And it was to differentiate myself from other business coaches or mentors or whatever consultants. So I'm really specialized and my thing is about resilience building for sustainability. So my talk was actually called the resilience equation. So I spoke about resilience and the parallel between raising a special needs child and being a startup founder or having had the startup life, and there are several parallels. And it's a mathematical equation, which I hope could be applied by anyone facing any kind of struggle in their lives. Basically, it's time. Give yourself time multiplied by beginner's mindset, or in my equation, I call it startup mindset. You are starting out. You don't know many things. You have to start from a place of no assumption and willingness to discover and allow yourself to go through that journey. And then, close bracket, because it's a mathematical equation, to the power of incremental action. So it's like taking little steps, incremental steps, doing small things. It's basically the principle of habit and learning. You learn, you rewire your brain when you do it repetitively and in small steps. So there are stories that are woven into this equation, and that's really based on my startup life and my journey raising my second daughter, who's a special needs child with a rare neurological condition. Because there, no one could have helped us, because when she was diagnosed, she was 1 in 21 in the world. So in the Netherlands, they were just like, yeah, sorry. I mean, you can tell us how she will develop. You can come back and feed your information into this system, but no one could help us. And when we were trying to place her at school, they didn't even know where to put her. Like, which school do you want to put her into? So that was a very difficult journey. And it remains that way, but I have to adopt a new mindset. So what I have had to do was to build the inner scaffolding, so to speak, to sustain a life that I thought we should all still have. That is like, I'm not giving up my job because, as I mentioned, I don't have this role model. And, and that's also how the Resilience Mentor, the business that I have today, was born. I only came about after Isabel's diagnostic and not before that. Before that, I was running my own startups. And, I think that's what I meant by allowing myself to evolve, because, that's the journey. I mean, and I don't think you need a special needs child to learn that, or you need anything catastrophic to happen to you. I think it's in a small way and in a big way what we should allow ourselves to do every day, to build this inner scaffolding by giving ourselves time, learn with the view of like, I don't know everything. I can still learn new things, and I can do small things and build on that. And so that's the whole talk, basically.
Amazing. Well, and it occurs to me as you're speaking, and what I hear reflected is that you don't have an area of your life where you're not applying that. Because when you're going to a new country, you have this equation works. And you've done this many times starting in a new country. When you have a startup, this is essential. And when you have a special needs child, or even just being a parent in general, this is a very sustainable way of going through being a parent, because you are doing everything for the first time. But having a special, like your story is so specific in having no road. You have no path. You are making the path. And that's incredible that that's playing out over and over in your story. There is no path. You're making the path.
I think for many people, this is the situation. It's just that we believe, let's say, when I was raising my first daughter before Isabel came, Camilla, I thought I could do that easily because she's a neurotypical. But every child is unique, right? And you are different. Also, you have to combine your work, your dreams, your relationship with your husband, or you move to another country. There's always a new mix in the equation. Yeah. And I think one thing that most people forget is to give themselves the time, the luxury of time, because we are often fed with this idea that if you're smart, you could figure it all out. I mean, no figuring out sometimes, it's on the job.
Yeah. And it occurs to me that this is actually what you're bringing this home, actually helping businesses become businesses, having the capital they need, being profitable, is actually giving them more time. That's what you're actually, part of what that is giving them more time. And that feeds into this equation that is pivotal to your success and that you're sharing with others, which I think is just so beautiful and so beautifully woven. And it comes from a place of deep knowing, which I think I think it makes you stand out.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. But to be very honest, all I know is that we can all have micro joys. I don't go for big joys now. I mean, that would be a bonus, but because I know we can all have micro joys, I focus on that. I mean, and I don't have this idea of hassle-free life anymore.
Yes.
It's not possible for me. It's not available to me. I hope for other people, they can have that. But I also believe I wouldn't have grown. And when I look at my life journey, I think when I have, switched somewhere where, it's called self-development at scale. It's like a whoop, take that, was when Isabel was diagnosed. And that was really hard. And I had to embrace that. And it is yet again another journey.
Yeah.
It got better with time, for sure.
And would you describe these micro joys as part of living with resilience and vitality? Like, is there a point when vitality goes into the equation? Because I think, at least in my life and in startups and in parenting, resilience is sometimes translated into everything's hard all the time. And when you say you're injecting these allowing or planning or expecting these moments of micro joy, that leads me to wonder about resilience and making sure that we put that in the equation.
Yeah. Do you really believe that we should expect things to be hard all the time in a startup?
That's what I've seen, and can be a trap, is that if we're not having a hard time, if we're not strapped for money, if we're not if we're not growing, and this is sometimes fueled by investors too. If you're not pushing as hard as you can, you're not going to meet your potential. You're not going to be able to compete. Vitality is not in the equation. It's not on the balance sheet, right? And sometimes not even a large enough paycheck for founders is on the balance sheet for some investors. And of course that's changing. And so I think it has potentially been part of startup culture, that being resilient means that you're striving all the time.
You suffer. I refuse to accept that because I believe in the power of my mind. I have proven cases for the power of my mind now because, I said I wanted to do this and I had the chance every time, including, speaking at TED. When I saw you on that stage, like a few weeks after your talk, I had a coffee with you, remember?
I do.
Like, It must be quite nice to speak at TED. I really want to have that opportunity one day. And the year after that, I spoke at TED. So for this, I think your mindset is so important. Your mindset is part of that inner scaffolding for resilience that you need to build. Expecting suffering is dangerous. I think you can expect the journey be as you envisage, because that's, who
It
knows?
never
This
is.
is
Never is.
life, right? But expecting suffering, that's a big, powerful thought. I would expect joy, okay, just to change the mindset. Like there is a little, or there are plenty of micro moments of joy. You expect first year, second year to be trying, but you do not expect suffering.
Yeah. And I love to hear you say that so much, because I've been saying it for 20 years.
This is just toxic mindset. I cannot encourage that, because that is
Yes.
not a growth mindset.
Yes. But it's also suffering for high financial payoff is a potentially uniquely American belief.
Really? But how
And that,
often does this happen? How often does this big financial payoff happen to people who expect suffering?
yes, and I think there's something in the zeitgeist. We don't need to go, like I can go into the collective mindset of a lot of things, but we won't go there today. But I do think that there is a very important part of building something that is completely custom, completely based on your life. That includes moving countries, having the relationship you want, having the business you want, having the life you want, is never going to be just smooth. And so this resilience that you're speaking of is an incredibly potent, if not essential, part of being successful, whatever that looks like for you. So having a custom life, I always call it having a custom life instead of following the path that others have laid out for you. And that's in business, in partnership, in life, and where you live. I think it's such a beautiful thing to know you're going to have to cultivate if it's not in there innately.
Custom life, I like that. And I think custom life comes from the recognition of the fact that life needs you to embrace change and to be flexible and to adapt, right? So you can customize it. What the essence of the word customize means, you need to adapt it to something. Adaptation can mean discomfort, friction, or whatever, but it's also time that will ease everything, right? In my opinion. But I do strongly suggest, if someone expects to suffer so much to get a high paycheck, to get out of that lane. No, just get out of that lane, because the paycheck will come because you have had to pivot several times. And that is customization. That's adapting. That's flexibility. And you will pivot so many times to get to that paycheck. Not you will suffer, I don't know, resilient sufferings. I mean, I don't know. I mean, personally, I will not recommend that.
No, I wouldn't either. But we do see, I mean, at least in my circles in the news, that most people who have had a lot of success have suffered in their personal life as a result.
Life. Oh, you mean personal life, not just
also
business life.
Yeah, also.
Personal life, yes. You need a very strong partner in life for this kind of life.
Yep. Thanks for joining us this week, everyone. I would love for you to share this episode with anyone who could use it. If you would please take the time to give us a rating or a review, we would really appreciate it. And follow along at houseofperegrine.com for everything we're up to this month. Thank you so much for joining. We'll see you next time. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed our show. For the latest insights on living internationally, join us at houseofperegrine.com to find out how you can connect with our community.